Thank you all for coming. We're real excited to be in person, as Amanda said, and it's the 46th annual Governor's Conference on Energy and Environment, and we have a whole lot of new energy issues, of new energy money, of new environmental issues, maybe not so much money to deal with some of them, but we're hopeful. So we want to share a lot of very useful information for you to help you with your professional careers, and hopefully you'll glean a lot from this conference. We're going to hear a personal message from Governor Beshear by video. His schedule would not permit him to be here this morning, but he's prepared some remarks for us, so I'm looking forward to that. But you know, a lot has changed since the last time we were all able to be together in one room. And so we're excited to share what we've accomplished since then. We're excited to share what Team Kentucky is doing to make a better future for all Kentuckians. This morning, you're going to hear a lot from cabinet leadership about issues that we grapple with every day. Barry Mayfield, the Executive Director of the Office of Legislative and Governmental Affairs, is going to moderate a panel that will feature our Department of Natural Resources Commissioner Gordon Sloan, our Department of Environmental Protection Commissioner Tony Hatton, Kenya Stump, who most of you know, our Executive Director of our Office of Energy Policy. And they'll all share their insights from emerging issues and contaminants to infrastructure funding, which I know is a very important subject for everybody, and renewables. We have a Meet the Funders panel, and I'm looking forward to this one, which will feature Torrin Collins, who's a specialist for Appalachia for the U.S. Department of Energy, Brian Gross, EPA Region 4 with the Brownfield Program, Sandy Williams, the Executive Director of the Kentucky Infrastructure Authority, James Cable, who's with our own Division of Abandoned Mine Lands, and Dennis Hatfield, the Director of our Division of Oil and Gas. All of these people are very, very involved in making decisions about how the state's going to spend the almost $7 billion coming into the state from the bipartisan infrastructure law. You're also going to hear another presentation I'm looking forward to from our EPA Region 4 Administrator, Mr. Daniel Blackman. Then we have a treat for you today at lunch. Lane Dilg is joining us. She's a senior advisor for the Office of the Undersecretary for Infrastructure in the Department of Energy. And after lunch, we'll hear from a very entertaining speaker, our new Economic Development Secretary, Jeff Knoll. We're going to hear from Dave Duttlinger, who's the Executive Director of the Bluegrass Area Development Districts. Kathy Walker, a real ball of energy and somebody that I love to work with, who's the founder and CEO of the East Kentucky Advanced Manufacturing Institute, otherwise known as ECAMI. Brad Clark, the founder and CEO of Latent Talent Accelerator, and Jordan Solomon, President and CEO of EcoStrat, and they're hosting your hospitality, so be nice to him. And he's also the chairman of BDO Zone Initiative. They're going to go over the resources and the tools that are available to address infrastructure, workforce development, and energy resiliency. We're also, I hope, going to have a very robust discussion of how we work with nonprofits and other organizations to get projects rolling across the Commonwealth. I'm not sure who's going to lead off that panel right now. We've had an unfortunate illness strike one of our panelists, but I think we have Amy Soner, Executive Director of Bluegrass Green Source, Sheila Medina, who is Assistant Director for Policy and Engagement at UK's Center for Applied Energy Research, one of our very valued partners, Carrie Ray, the Energy Program Coordinator of Mountain Association, and our own Sonny Carr, the Executive Director of our Kentucky Nature Preserves Office. Then today's going to wrap up with a deeper dive into the environmental challenges we faced in the last 2 years. During that time, we've had six federally declared disasters. culminating in the flooding this past July in eastern Kentucky. So we'll hear from Carrie Johnson, the director of our Division of Water, Jason Unrein, the director of the Kentucky Water Resources Research Institute, Scott Young, who's a relatively new director for Kentucky Rural Water Association, and John Dorman, vice president and emergency and risk management for AECOM Engineering. We unofficially kicked off the conference yesterday with a grant writing workshop, and this skill set is going to be very, very valuable as small communities or businesses or even our cabinet apply for these federal funds that are coming down. And I want to thank Amanda Lefevre for conducting that workshop. She's quite skilled in grant writing, and we're happy to have her. So thank you, Amanda, for doing that. There's so much happening in Kentucky in the fields of energy and environment that I could share, but I think we need to focus on a couple of things. The Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, which I call the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, and specifically what that's going to mean to our Kentucky communities. And we have $74 million relatively soon coming into the cabinet for our abandoned mine lands program, and a $25 million program in our division of oil and gas to cap orphan gas wells. For Kentucky, the bipartisan infrastructure law provides about $6.8 million in funding, billion dollars. Did I say million? It's billion. In funding that will give the Commonwealth an opportunity to make meaningful strides in rebuilding infrastructure and energy development and advancements, and creating an estimated 700,000 jobs over the next decade. There are 49 infrastructure programs that have been targeted for funding over the next 5 fiscal years. That number is continuing to grow as we see new programs announced periodically. As of today, for fiscal year 2022 alone, Kentucky's program allocations exceed $1.5 billion. The funding is channeled through 3 main funding streams. One is transportation, and you're going to hear from Cabinet Secretary Jim Gray tomorrow about transportation. The second is broadband access, and I'm sure you've read a lot about that. And the third is energy and environment, which includes climate change and resiliency funding. You can find information about these programs on our website. EEC has Building a Better Kentucky website, and we are trying to provide timely information both on currently available programs as well as expected timeframes for other programs. These funding opportunities are sorted into 6 categories on our website. We have energy efficiency and resiliency, forestry and safety, reclamation, remediation, prevention, renewable energy, waste management, and water. You'll also find links there if you're with a local government to state and federal resources, as well as resources that your local government can use to navigate these programs. We're tracking about 100 funding opportunities that communities and local governments can apply for directly without having to go through the state program. And again, that's where that grant writing workshop comes into play. From clean energy and power to public transportation to resiliency and more, there's about $206 billion over the next 5 years for eligible projects that communities and local governments can apply for. For the cabinet, our largest funding stream is easily for abandoned mine lands. Kentucky is slated to receive $74 million each program year for the next 15 years. That means a little over $1 billion devoted to that program. These funds will also be used as part of AML's waterline replacement program to help provide potable water to citizens whose water supplies have been adversely impacted by historic mining. The Infrastructure Act also reauthorized the AML program through the year 2034. Kentucky currently receives an estimated $9 million in fee-based funding for the reclamation of historic mining hazards such as subsidence, slides, open portals, refuse piles, and mine seam fires. Last year, before the funding, the Division of AML completed 70 projects at a cost of almost $9 million. This new funding is going to enable us to complete nearly 300 projects a year, which is an enormous expansion of that program. I'd like to also give a quick nod to the Division's AMLR program. In 7 years, our AML division has vetted over 400 projects. 75 of them have been selected for $162 million in federal funding. And these projects have already produced about 150 jobs in Eastern Kentucky through industrial development, workforce training, infrastructure improvements, tourism, agritech, and community wellness. So, pat on the back for AML. And when they're all completed, we expect that as many as 2,300 jobs could be created. This year we had 86 applications. Governor Beshear is prepared to announce the selections at the SOAR Summit, which begins Wednesday in Pikeville. The bipartisan infrastructure law also provides this first year about $25 million for us to plug orphaned oil and gas wells. We've identified more than 15,000 wells across the Commonwealth, and there could be more. The wells can be anything from being a nuisance to actually being an environmental hazard, depending on the property's geology or the wellhead's condition. 7 weeks ago, as part of his Better Kentucky plan, Governor Beshear announced the $25 million grant from the U.S. Department of the Interior to plug these orphan and gas wells. And we are first addressing areas of the greatest need, the sites with the most impact on our citizens' health or our environmental or our natural resources, sorry. The first 10 contracts worth $5.3 million were awarded last month to multiple contractors. Let's see, there's a lot of counties: Christian, Cumberland, Allen, Davies, Henderson, Lee, McLean, Ohio, Pulaski, and Webster counties. Christian County has seen the first repair work to begin, the plugging work on 25 wells. Bid openings for the next 159 wells have taken place, and once those are awarded, then that construction work will begin. And we have the potential to cap many, many more wells through this 5-year program. The division could receive up to $79 million in the program's next phase. And while the funds are not enough to address all of the problem sites, it will allow us to make great headway in restoring properties and improving our natural resources. The bipartisan infrastructure law has many other funding sources that we are tracking. There's $750 million for small businesses that undertake eligible projects in communities that have been impacted by closures of coal mines or coal-fired power plants. Qualifying energy projects could include those powered by solar, wind, hydrothermal, geothermal, or hydroelectric energy. Funding will encourage the production of fuel cells and microturbines, energy storage systems, and the modernization of electric grid equipment. Our Office of Energy Policy, Kenya Stump Shop, will receive about $8 million for projects that improve energy conservation, resiliency, and reliability, and there's an opportunity for those state energy offices to apply for an additional $40 million in funding. In all of the discussions today, you're going to hear a common thread, and that's the need for resiliency. The climate-induced challenges that we've experienced here in Kentucky have clearly shown that resiliency is an area we really need to focus on. The catastrophic flooding in eastern Kentucky, the water emergency in Marion, Kentucky, The tornadoes in western Kentucky have shown us all that we need to rethink ways to rely on our drinking and wastewater systems during an emergency. We need to rethink ways to build stronger communities that don't flood when the creeks rise. Less than 3 months ago, more than 40 people died. Hundreds lost their homes and businesses when 15 inches of rainfall occurred over a 5-day period. You know, a lot of my staff and I myself have seen the devastation that flooding caused. It's barely comprehensible. It is so devastating. We traveled, 30 miles, John Lyons, down Troublesome Creek, I think, a place where my mother's family grew up and a place I had visited a lot during my youth, and it's unrecognizable. The state and its partners have undertaken a massive relief effort there. Our partners have restored power and light and water to these affected communities. Roads have been cleared and hazardous materials have been located and will be disposed of. We're working with FEMA to provide temporary housing and working with our communities to identify properties suitable for permanent housing outside of the floodplain. Much more is needed, though, especially as winter approaches. So here's where I make my impassioned plea for you to donate to the Team Eastern Kentucky Flood Relief Fund. If you have not done so, please do so. You cannot imagine the devastation, and as we are approaching winter, we need to find very quick solutions for these communities and these families. All donations to the fund are tax deductible. You probably already know that, and you can easily donate online. So I ask you, if you haven't given, please do so. I hope that over this next 2-day period you find this conference thought-provoking, and that opens up a lot of possibilities for you about what we can do and what we can achieve, especially when we view our partnerships in very new and different ways. So please visit our exhibitors outside and take a look at the new all-electric Ford Lightning F-150 pickup truck on display. I am told if you go out the store and hang a left, it's out back. And if you have not seen that truck, it's just amazing. You need to get out there and take a look at it and think about the students who have made the small electric vehicles outside, and there are new generation of electrical engineers who are going to be working for these companies. But we've got everything from a go-kart that is powered by electricity to the F-150. So you all need to take a look at this. This is the future. I know Amanda's already thanked some people, but I do want to thank our sponsors, the break sponsors, Kentucky Touchstone Energy Cooperatives. I love our RECCs, and we cannot restore power as quickly as we've been able to do in Kentucky after these events, like our tornadoes in western Kentucky or the flooding in eastern Kentucky, without their help and those mutual aid agreements. So a big shout out to them. We have Cardinal sponsors, Community Action of Kentucky, our Kentucky Association for Environmental Education, the Kentucky Climate Center, the NEED Project, the UK Center for Applied Energy Research, and the U of L Conn Center for Renewable Energy Research. And thank you again to EcoStrat for libations and our hospitality event this afternoon. So it's my great pleasure now to introduce you to a person whose strong and compassionate leadership has moved Kentucky forward and has been pivotal to Kentucky's remarkable job growth and resilience in the face of a pandemic and repeated environmental emergencies. Governor Andy Beshear has made Kentucky a healthier place to live for all of us and a more prosperous place for all of us. His Better Kentucky plan has led the Commonwealth in the post-COVID economy by applying federal dollars to build new schools, deliver clean drinking water, and expand access to broadband, and to build stronger communities and improve our roads and bridges and expand our electric vehicle infrastructure. You've all seen the headlines since he took office. The Commonwealth has shattered about every economic development record that we had in the books. Private sector new location and expansion announcements include a record $19.7 billion in planned investment and commitments, and will create a record 37,000 plus full-time 37,000 plus full-time jobs in the coming years. Sorry about that. There's the $5.8 billion Ford Motor Company and SK Innovation battery plant in Hardin County that you've all heard about. That's about 5,000 jobs. The $2 billion Envision AESC lithium-ion battery plant in Bowling Green. And just last month, he has announced that Ascend Elements, a producer of advanced sustainable battery materials made from recycled lithium-ion batteries, will invest more than $300 million in Christian County. Thank you so much. Very good. That was sorely needed. We'll invest more than $300 million in Christian County, creating 250 full-time jobs. And that could grow into a $1 billion investment in the future. So I just want to say I'm very proud to be part of Team Kentucky and very proud to work for this governor. So ladies and gentlemen, please give your attention to Governor Andy Beshear. Oh, but before you give your attention to Governor Andy Beshear, there's one other thing I want to announce. I want to thank my staff who put this conference together. I need to give a shout out to all of these people who work very hard, because it's not easy to pull all this together. Sandra Gardner, Jan Velez, John Mura, Robin Hartman, Carrie Johnson, Paulette Akers, Barry Mayfield, Amanda Lefevre, Jennifer Turner, Ashley Runyon, Brad Bowman, Kristen Delamarter, Lindsay Hirsch, and our Division of Waste Management's Recycled and Local Assistance Branch, who moved all the furniture. We also want to announce that if you're having trouble with the Wi-Fi, it's Hilton Meeting is the Wi-Fi, and the password is premium with a capital P 2022. So without further ado, please give Governor Beshear your attention. Thank you.
This important conference. A lot has happened since we last came together. We faced devastating tornadoes that impacted many of our western Kentucky communities. And in July, eastern Kentucky experienced the worst flooding seen in my lifetime. So many of our fellow Kentuckians have been displaced, with homes and businesses destroyed, along with much of our infrastructure. We also suffered the loss of human life, children of God, irreplaceable to their families and their communities. The tornadoes took the lives of 81 people, and we've lost at least 40 in the flooding. Despite the heartbreak and devastation, we also saw the strength and resiliency of our people. Now, we Kentuckians, we're tough. We may get knocked down, but we always get back up. We heal and we rebuild together. However long it takes, Team Kentucky is there for our brothers and sisters in need. As for our efforts in eastern Kentucky, by the end of September, all drinking water systems were restored. All our kids were back in their classrooms. Nearly 500 people were being provided safe shelter through our state parks or through travel trailers. Almost 271,000 tons of debris have been removed. That's getting that chaos up and getting it out of town. And we're still making progress. And at my request, FEMA extended the deadline for individuals in the 13 approved counties to apply for individual assistance. As you know, we've once again raised millions of dollars in donations to help those communities, and we passed a nonpartisan EK Safe Fund to help provide relief and support as we rebuild. Now, as everybody in this room knows, it is crucial for us to take what we've learned from these disasters and use that to be better prepared for the next one. Unfortunately, this past year has shown us that the unimaginable is now possible. Because of that, I signed an executive order in September to establish the Council for Community Recovery and Resiliency. This group will consist of members from both state and federal agencies to provide leadership and guidance for recovery and resiliency in planning for our local communities. We must also continue prioritizing investing in our infrastructure. These investments are important for many reasons. A stronger, more modern infrastructure is less vulnerable in these types of disasters. These investments also help improve the quality of life for our people, and they can make local communities more attractive for companies looking to invest and create jobs. These include investments like those made through my Cleaner Water program, which has $500 million appropriated through a bipartisan agreement to provide clean drinking water and wastewater grants to fund projects across Kentucky. We've also directed tens of millions of dollars to fund safety upgrades near dozens of schools. And we've announced transportation funding to ensure we're not just fixing the major highways, but also improving the smaller roads that are most important to the people who live there. These are the type of investments we must continue to make to revitalize our local communities and make them more resilient. While we have been through a lot, we're taking steps to make our Commonwealth as strong as possible. And there has never been a more important time to do that than now. 2021 was a record-shattering year for new jobs and investments, and 2022 is on track to be just as successful. In fact, here in Kentucky, we saw the largest job growth increase in the nation for the month of August. That's right, we're number one in creating new jobs for our people. It is an exciting time, especially because our two biggest investments in the history of our Commonwealth are pushing Kentucky into the future, along with many more. In the last 28 months, we've announced 12 EV-related projects totaling $9.2 billion in new investment. And even better, those projects are creating 8,500 new full-time Kentucky jobs. These projects include Ford and SK Innovations' Blue Oval SK battery plant in Hardin County and Envision AESC's battery plant in Warren County. These two projects solidified us, Kentucky, as the electric vehicle battery capital of the United States of America. And while our workforce will be powering the future, we also want to make sure we have the infrastructure in place so people can drive those vehicles for themselves. That's why this summer I announced nearly $70 million in funding to build a statewide charging network to support long-distance EV travel. Folks, our time is here. Our future is now, and now that future, it's electric. So while we've had some challenging times here in Kentucky, we have hope and we have faith because we know we're building a brighter tomorrow full of opportunity for our people. We're creating jobs while also building stronger communities where our folks can feel safe and build the lives they want and the lives they deserve. That is why we are all here, to ensure our Commonwealth is a place where your kids and mine can live and thrive for generations to come. And we're going to keep making progress. From seeing through our energy strategy to encouraging sustainable investments, we are moving Kentucky forward for our people, and we're doing it together. So before I close, I want to say thank you. Thank you for being a critical part of Team Kentucky. With your efforts, we will get through the challenges and create a brighter tomorrow for every Kentuckian, and we'll get through those challenges together. Thank you.